What's the word, y'all? It's Double R the God tapping in with y'all, man. This is the 13th episode of the God Pod. Today we have criminal defense attorney here, straight out of Detroit, holding it down for the city, making changes inside and outside of the courtroom. She's actually working on a high-profile case right now, defendant named Michael Jackson Bolanos, and she's going to be giving us the details and what's going on, as well as what it's like in the life of a criminal defense attorney. With no further ado, Perna, a.k.a. My Detroit Lawyer.
Thank you.
How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Thank you for having me on.
No problem, no problem.
Appreciate it.
So, how did you get into practicing law? Like, when did it start for you? How long have you been doing this for?
So that's a question I get asked a lot. And honestly, it's one of those super cliche answers. It's like, oh, ever since I was little, I wanted to be a lawyer. It literally is one of those things. Like, I never had a vision for myself of anything else. Probably before I even knew what a lawyer was. I was like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. I don't know why, but
So,
you know.
so this has been something like that's just been with you your entire life. Like, that's kind of similar to me with music.
Yeah, I would say the title of a lawyer was with me my entire life. And then getting into criminal defense was really, in my older years, getting in trouble myself, going through my own situations with the law. I was like, oh, you know what? I know what it feels like to be on this side of things. Like, hold on a second. Once I overcome this, I'm about to be helping on this side of things. Like, I'm never going to be on the other side.
No, I feel that. So, was there any like specific moment that led you to be like, this is what I'm going to do?
Waking up in a jail cell. Yeah.
Mm.
That was a moment where I was like, oh wow, that wasn't a dream. I'm here. Yeah.
Man.
Probably definitely gonna do this now. Like this sucks. I'm sure there was other things that, even just having a lot of friends that were going through the system and talking to them about their cases and stuff like that, just realizing the need for representation in this field. The Black and brown communities are not represented enough, even though we are the ones that are incarcerated the most. So, that need for representation became more and more aware to me in my older years, like in life.
I agree 100%. I feel like us in the Black and brown community need to spend more time understanding what our rights are just in general and how court works and the whole procedure of it. Like, we leave ourselves out in that whole regard as much time as our community spends in that place dealing with that type of stuff. So I agree with that 100%. I spent a little bit of time really delving into law, just understanding the language of it and understanding the difference between legalese and English. So I kind of understand. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Right.
Oh, do you have something to say?
No, go ahead.
Was there a specific case that, like, early on in your career where you were like, I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Ooh, like once I was already practicing criminal defense?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I'm not even going to lie to you. Every single one. Every single case that I do. And I have moments of frustration like everybody else does doing their job, right? And a lot of times I feel like this is, in a lot of ways, kind of like a thankless career. And I get upset about that sometimes because things seem to go so wrong all the time. You know what I mean? Like there things that the opposition side of this feels like are little things, they go wrong. And I think that's a big deal. I think everything related to it is a big deal. So from the very beginning, like you're never going to go through a case from beginning to end that's going to be flawless and perfect. There's always going to be, those twists and those turns and those things that just are imperfect. And that kind of, I guess, makes it worthwhile in the end when you get that outcome you want. But I can't think of one particular one from the beginning of my career that like stamped it for me. That was like, oh yeah, this the one. Like this is it. I guess all of them have been impactful in different ways for me, I should say. So,
what do you love most about the work that you do?
When you've done your best work, like your absolute best, like you stayed up all night, you go into that trial, you give it your everything, you cross and you doing all these things, and you come out and you win, the appreciation that client has for you actually having given a fuck is something like that's a thing that can't you can't match that. Honestly, even if you don't win, like when you're in there giving it your all and your client, like your client knows that you've done, like you put that work in for
No
real.
facts.
Um, there is a level of appreciation that they have for that, and they can see that and they can feel it, and they like reading it on you in that room too, like they know it, you know what I mean? And just them having that level of appreciation and having that level of like respect back and forth with each other, to know that like, yo, I respect you enough for you trusting me to do this, and I know you respect me because you saw me go to war for you.
Absolutely.
You know, like that is a feeling and a bond that like it definitely is like a elevation, like a higher. It's a feeling of a high that I can't really describe, but
Yeah.
it's a great feeling.
No, I definitely believe that, because you have to have a lot of respect for your client. You have to have a lot of respect for your lawyer, because you guys are on the battlefield, and I can tell, like
Absolutely.
from what I've seen, like you really ride for your clients and do your best for them. You know what I'm saying?
I always try to. I really feel like in the field of law, especially in criminal defense, like um defendants are held to this standard of perfection in the eyes of the law. So my kind of perspective on that is, if you're going to hold the defendant and you're going to hold the defense to the standard of perfection, then I expect everyone else to be held to that standard too. So there is no room for these mistakes that people think are small mistakes and stuff like that. You playing with someone's life, and a life is the most precious thing to be played with, right? So if you want to play games with the numbers on these, the type of numbers that they hand out on people's lives, no, then you need to come in here perfect, because you expect perfection out of this defendant. You expect perfection out of this defense team. That's the expectation that's given, right? Because I see prosecutors get hella leeway in court all the time for things that are just trivial and things that are not trivial. Like everything in between the spectrum. I see so much leeway be given, and I always be thinking to myself, like, if that was the defense, we would never be given that kind of leeway. They would never. They'd be like, oh, for real, you want an adjournment because of the... Nah, it would never happen. So that, to equal the playing field in my world, I hold y'all to the same standard that you hold my client to. You want that perfection? Well, I expect that too in this courtroom then. Everything should flow according to, everyone should be handling each other with decorum and candor and all the other things under the sun.
I was going to ask you, do you feel like there is, I don't know the right word to use it, like like you said, like kind of like a bias towards whether you're the defendant or on the prosecution side, even from the jury and the rest of the courtroom, no matter what the situation is? Do you feel like it's always leaning towards the prosecution side?
I don't want to say with the jury, because I think that um I'm still a believer in the jury system, right? Because if everything was left up to a bench trial, I'd be like, yo, we're fucked. Like
Yeah.
if everyone just, if we had no jury system and it was just left to a judge, I do think obviously the prosecution has a job to do, right? They're doing their job. Sometimes they tend to overstep doing their job. They don't just keep it, you know, with this case and in this playing field. Like you catch them trying to just do dirty shit. Like,
C- Not to cut you
go ahead.
off, but can you explain like the role of the prosecutor for the audience?
Sure. So the role of the prosecutor is to, they've brought charges against someone, right? Each charge that they bring against someone has certain elements. So their job is to take the evidence that, after a police do an investigation, look at that evidence, and then look at the charges they want to charge, and then charge them with something, and then look at the elements of those charges and be like, based on what I know from this investigation, can I meet all of these elements beyond a reasonable doubt? I think that's where our system is kind of innately flawed. Maybe not in the system, but maybe with the people who are on the prosecution side. Not always, because I do know some good prosecutors, but it's just a majority of the time it's over prosecution, which I say all the time. I'm constantly harping on that, but that's what it is. They want to pick every single thing in the book to try to stack the charges up against someone for multiple reasons. One being, well, we could probably convince you to take a plea then, because we're hitting you with charges A through O. Well, maybe you'll just plead to C and D and F. You know what I'm saying? Like that's ridiculous. Find what you think you really think this person did, and charge them with that. But don't be so overzealous with it. Don't be so ridiculous with it. Keep in mind, like this is a this is a practice of human mechanism, right? Like humans are imperfect. And that's not to say like, okay, if it's a crime and they're gonna charge you with a crime, then yeah, that's what they're gonna do. But damn, sometimes I feel like these prosecutors, they act like they're perfect beings. Like they don't look at the like I think there is a level of like there's a standard that prosecutors should be held to. Of course, they have to do their job, right? But like I wonder to myself sometimes like, damn, do they ever think like, okay, that fact doesn't really fit this. Like I can understand like there's mitigating factors here, there's circumstances here, there's this and that. Like, nah, let's we're not even gonna go for that because that really doesn't it seems to me like it's just always like, no, go for everything and then see what happens in the end. That's crazy. That shit is unfair. That's crazy as hell.
Yeah, I can agree to that. Do you feel like what is the benefit of them doing that to you?
To me, there's no benefit. I stand to gain nothing from that. To them, there's a benefit because they're like, we gonna get someone one way or another. That seems vindictive to me. That seems the anti-interest of justice to operate like that. Justice is supposed to be about fairness. It's not fair for you to just be out here on like a hunt and a search. It's either there or it's not. It's like being pregnant. You either pregnant or you not, right? Like, don't just go looking for shit that don't go looking for it. It's either there in the investigation or it's not there in it. Stop trying to put together puzzle pieces of shit that's just not on the table. Don't do that.
No facts. I think ego might play into it too, because once you get into that room and you feel like you've lined somebody up or you've lined up all of these allegations towards them, it's kind of hard to retract from an ego standpoint, once they're already down that road.
You know what? That is probably a very fair assessment too. I'm sure there's a lot of things that should not play into it that unfortunately do play into it. And those are the things that I think are so problematic about these wheels of justice that we have. Like there's so many things about it, but those are some of them. For sure.
What do you think are some of the most misunderstood things about a criminal defense attorney?
Ooh. So I think some of the most misunderstood things about criminal defense attorneys are specifically about court appointed attorneys. A lot of people have this misconception that court appointed attorneys just suck. And that is not true, at least for the ones I know. Like, I'm even on the court appointed list. I take court appointed cases sometimes. I think it's important to be able to give my services to people that would not otherwise be able to afford them. I do think that's an important thing to do. But there are quite a few attorneys that I know that are on the court appointed list that are fire attorneys, fantastic attorneys. And you can be on the court appointed list and take privately retained cases. Like I do it all the time, right? But I think that's one thing people tend to, and the court appointed thing is like a luck of the draw type thing anyway, right? You get who you get. So yeah, maybe sometimes you're not gonna like who you get. You don't get the vetting process.
Right.
The benefit of being able to pick up the phone, be like, hey, this is my case, and then you hear how they're talking and you see if there's a vibe there. And because obviously a case isn't done overnight. You got to work with this person for a long period of time, which means you got to like them and they got to like you. So, I think that's one misconception about criminal defense attorneys. I think another one is that criminal defense attorneys can be wizards and we can just make everything go away. That is so far from the truth, right? Like I get people that call me and they're like, yeah, I'm just looking to get this dismissed. Yeah, like so am I.
Right.
So is everybody. Like we're all looking to get shit dismissed. Like for
Right.
sure. I wish I could just dismiss everyone's shit left and right. I'd be the best attorney in the world, right? Like hands down. Like but that's not the reality.
Living
Like
in La La Land.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like we cannot wave a wand and turn back the hands in time and go right before the date this happened and be like, "All right, you good now." Like, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of tactical movement and strategizing and legal thinking and playing your cards correctly and knowing how to attack a case, like knowing exactly what you're looking for, how to look for it, how to get it. And then, if you're going to trial, it's the whole art of trial. So it's not as simple as just being like, oh yeah, just like I want it dismissed. Like, yeah, for sure. We all want that.
Right.
Like, so that's another misconception. I
Yeah,
don't know. I think there's lots.
I can see people having a lot of um bad preconceptions about how things are supposed to go, especially when they're in a tight situation. Like
Yeah.
they not really understand. A lot of people don't understand the law to any degree. So it's like when they get a lawyer, they think everything is just going to disappear, and it's not like that.
Right. Or they think that everything should be like this instantaneous gratification type thing where like all of these processes take a long time, which is why I said again, like there is a benefit to retaining an attorney because you figure out if you want that attorney first and if that attorney wants to take you on as a client. And then from there, this is a long term process. So if you stuck with someone that you got to consistently call or they got to call you and you guys got to constantly talk about things and y'all don't like each other, I mean, this is not no one time date type of thing. This is not meeting for coffee one time. Like
Right.
this is a long process. So, I think people tend to think like, "Oh yeah, I got this charge like it's going to be over tomorrow." No, no, no.
Don't work
We're in
like
this
that.
for months.
Right.
Like so,
Man. So how do you personally deal with like the pressure from like emotionally charged cases or like high profile cases?
the pressure in what sense, I guess.
Like just, going back and forth to court, dealing with your client and things of that nature.
I mean, it's all about in my opinion, it's all about understanding, right? Like you got to put yourself in the client's shoes and understand the level of pressure that they're feeling, the level of anxiety they're feeling, the level of um the fear of the unknown that they have, right? So, I think if you like, the best way to keep yourself from getting like worked up or overly pissed about one thing or another. Obviously, I get angry frequently about the things that happen, right? Like that's no secret for sure. But I don't take that out on my clients and I don't feel any particular way about my clients because I understand those shoes that they're in. I understand that weight of what they're carrying on them and just not knowing what the outcome is going to be and that is a level of anxiety that I'm able to recognize in someone else and that I always try my best to kind of keep in the forefront of my mind when working on someone's case. So, I don't I definitely feel pressure, right? But I just try not to have anything to do with my client. Like my pressure that I'm feeling is my pressure that I'm gonna feel, but I'm supposed to take your pressure and my pressure, and that's what I'm supposed to do. That's part of my job.
Yeah, you got to have a certain level of awareness and emotional stability to deal with that, separating what they're going on from what you're going on, as well as dealing with what's going on in the courtroom.
Absolutely.
So now you're handling the Michael Jackson Bolanos case right now. How did you first get involved in that case?
So I do just want to say I'm technically not handling it right now. I was one of the trial attorneys when it was in trial,
Okay.
and he is now incarcerated in MDOC, and it's going through an appellate process right now. So I'm in contact with his appellate attorney and assisting in the best ways that I can, but I'm not necessarily like in the thick of the appellate thing. Like I'm not arguing in appellate court for him or anything like that.
Now, could you explain like appellate court and like actually being the lawyer during trial and like the different lawyers that come into play?
Oh yeah. So, a trial court attorney is what I am. So when you first get charged with a crime,
Mhm.
everything from your arraignment all the way through to your sentencing or your dismissal or whatever. Like if you go to trial and you get sentenced or whatever, or the dismissal at trial, whatever, that is a trial attorney's duty. So every single thing that happens in between those stages
Mhm.
is something that someone such as myself or another trial attorney would handle. Then at that point, like using the example of Michael Jackson Bolanos, the judge ended up sentencing him to 18 months to 15 years for lying to the police. So that's MDOC time. So now that he's in MDOC,
What's
um,
MDOC?
Michigan Department of Corrections. So he's in prison. So now there is an entire appeal that's happening. Number one, the prosecutor's office is appealing the they're appealing a lot of things right now. And I guess I don't want to talk too much about the very specifics of what's going on, so I'll generalize things. But basically, what the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office is trying to do is they want a retrial. They are unhappy with the fact that Michael Jackson Bolanos was acquitted of first degree murder and the underlying second degree murder, and he was found guilty of count four, which was lying to the police. But the other counts, which were home invasion and felony murder, they want him retried on There is case precedent that exists that's called it's a case that's called the Yeager case. It was discussed during his sentencing at the trial level stage, at the circuit court stage, and that precludes them from being able to retry him. That is a case that has case precedent that very specifically indicates that he cannot be retried for those crimes, despite the fact that it was a hung jury. He cannot be retried because he was acquitted of that murder and that second degree murder. First degree and second degree murder precludes them from being able to do anything with that. They are actively trying to pursue this still.
So you're talking about like something like basically like a Supreme Court ruling.
Correct. Correct. And Yeager is a Supreme Court case.
Can you explain like how Supreme Court plays and like a Supreme Court ruling plays into this situation?
Sure. So the state of Michigan, we have a Michigan Supreme Court, right? So the Michigan Supreme Court would take precedent over state court rulings. So if it was a Michigan Supreme Court case, then when Wayne County is attempting to appeal this, they would be asking the Michigan Supreme Court to overturn Yeager so that they could get an opportunity to retry Bolanos. Michigan Supreme Court's not going to be able to do that because above the Michigan Supreme Court is the U.S. Supreme Court, and Yeager is a U.S. Supreme Court case. So Michigan Supreme Court's hands would be tied. Hopefully, no one would even want to do something like this to somebody, but in that event, their hands would be tied because there is a larger entity that has precedent power over them, which is the U.S. Supreme Court, because the U.S. Supreme Court has to say so in all the things ultimately.
Mm. So essentially, they're trying to overrule the Supreme Court to retry Michael Jackson Bolanos.
Correct. They want the Yeager case to be overturned so that they can retry him, which I think is fucking absurd.
So can you like go through the stages of how the case began and?
Sure. So, I mean, do you want me to go through like before it even, okay. So basically there was a woman by the name of Samantha Wall who was a very active, she was the president of the Isaac Agree Synagogue in downtown Detroit, which is a Jewish synagogue, very affluent synagogue downtown Detroit. She was the president of it. On October 21st of 23, she was found murdered outside her home. And there was 8 stab wounds to her neck and the back of her head and the back of her neck. And that's where she was found outside her home. The police started an immediate investigation because that whole Israel-Hamas war had started on October 7th. Mm-hmm. So the first assumption was that this was like related to that somehow because she was the president of the synagogue, which it very well still could be because clearly the investigation they didn't do that good. So, there's that. But anywho, so they do this whole investigation, and during the course of their investigation, down the line, they end up doing this thing called geofencing, where they look at all the cell phones that were in an area at a particular time. So they end up collecting several thousand cell phones that were pinging from different places and whatever. And they were looking at video cameras from that night, like surveillance videos. And on these surveillance videos, they found an individual who was walking around, and they were able to pinpoint the time that this person was walking to the time of a tower, and they got a phone number, essentially. And that phone number was for Michael Jackson Bolanos. And so ultimately what happened was that Michael Jackson Bolanos was arrested, and he was charged with Samantha Wall's murder. This was a huge investigation. Like, this investigation consisted of the FBI, Michigan State Police, Detroit Police, 3 huge agencies that were full-fledged, all involved in this, right? So, I mean, the trial itself took 5 weeks to have, which is insane. The witness list that the prosecution filed was like 143 people. I mean, it was crazy. It was civilian witnesses. It was MSP, DPD, FBI, all these people. And ultimately they were, in my opinion, and I think my opinion is the right opinion because I've seen all of this. I saw all the evidence from the beginning all the way through to the trial. This was an absolute railroad of Bolanos. From the very beginning, they were attempting to make everything that rather than doing an investigation, because an investigation would mean that someone goes in with a fresh set of eyes, and rather than looking for a person to pin everything on, they're simply looking at what's there and trying to make sense of what's there. In my opinion, what they did, each of these agencies, was they narrowed in on an individual who was their suspect, who was Bolanos, and then they attempted to try to make everything that they found fit him. That's crazy. That is absolute crazy work to try to do that to someone. And that's absolutely what happened here. They were so, and quite frankly, that's what fucked up their entire investigation, right? Because no one wanted to go in with a fresh set of eyes. No one wanted to go in with a clear head and a clear mind. Everyone was so gung-ho trying to make it be him that they fucked it up from the very beginning. And honestly, like, whatever. So that's their bad. Someone should have got their head out their own ass and realized what they were dealing with here. And because ultimately another thing that happened was Samantha Wall's ex-boyfriend, Jeffrey Herbsman, he ends up on like November 7th of 2023. He ends up driving to Kalamazoo because he works in Kalamazoo, and he calls 911 and he admits to her murder. He just says that he killed her and he doesn't remember what happened and blah, 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 blah. And he thinks he's a threat to himself and the public and all these things. And they bring him in for a questioning, because I would hardly call what they did to him an interrogation, because that's what they did to Bolanos. They interrogated Bolanos. They very gently brought Jeffrey Herbsman in to question him. And there was absolutely no investigation done of him. And the police actually had the audacity to come into court and say that they thoroughly investigated this man. There was no such thorough investigation done of this man like there was done of Michael Jackson Bolanos. And after all the thorough investigating that they did of Bolanos, they still are unable to prove that he did anything to Samantha Wall, because he in fact did not. And you cannot make something be what you want it to be just because you want it to be that. You have to be fair. You have to be objective. You have to literally look at what the end result of your investigation is. And the fucking bottom line is, the end result of their investigation is that shit is not Bolanos. Period. It's not. And they just were trying to die on that hill that it was him, rather than, hey, how about you actually do an actual investigation of the guy that says he did it? Because then Jeffrey Herbsman ends up just changing his mind and being like, I was having a panic attack and I smoked some weed and I had upped my psychiatric medication or whatever. Listen, that is the craziest shit I've ever heard. Because I don't give a fuck what you did, but if you did all of those things and they still didn't investigate you, they considered that okay? That's okay for you to say that? I'm sure, I know a lot of people that have smoked weed, okay? Like back in my day, I used to too. I ain't never smoked no weed that made me decide I was gonna say I killed someone that I didn't kill. That's crazy work. That is absolute insanity for that to even fly. I've never even heard of such a thing. And, and through the trial, I actually started this little series called Who the Fuck Decided to Incarcerate Bolanos? And not many people were watching it, or are watching it, I should say. But, I've taken my time to I took a little pause because I had an internet issue, which I'm trying to get back into it now. But I've really taken my time to kind of delve through the points of the trial and kind of show people exactly what was happening here and exactly how a railroad happens. How exactly does a person get into a place where they get railroaded? I've taken this trial apart and I've shown people the different aspects of it, because that at least is a good example for people to be able to see. So many times people talk online or, just amongst themselves about people getting railroaded in court, right? But this is a perfect case study for that, because this entire trial was live streamed. It was national news. It was all around everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was watching it. But no one actually took the time to understand, where the fuck is Bolanos now? After all that was said and done, and he was acquitted of murder, no one's wondering why he's not walking the streets? No, it's because he's actually in prison still for a charge of lying to the police on a sentence term of 18 months to 15 years. That's crazy work. And I'm sorry, I'm so all over the place with this whole story, but we let the government just play in our face. And that's exactly how I take that sentence that he was given. That is a play in our face. That's absolutely insane, because I don't know people that have not lied to the police. We have all lied to the police. Every single person. If you say you haven't lied to the police, then you must live under a rock and have never had police contact in your life. Because you have. I don't care if it was rolling a stop sign and you got pulled over and you're like, oh, no, I stopped. No, you didn't.
Right.
Your ass knew you wrote that shit. You just trying to get off, right? Which is
Right.
cool. Like, whatever. It's the police lie to us all the time. Yeah, so that's a thing. Like, I'm not advocating lying, but I'm just saying that is a thing that occurs, and we're not going to sit here and act like this is just the most obscure anomaly of a thing that occurred. No, get the hell out of here. People do it all the time. It's obscure and it's an anomaly to get sent to prison for it. It's obscure and it's an anomaly to get sent to prison for 18 months to 15 years. It's obscure and it's an anomaly to have your parole flopped when you haven't even done shit. Like, they flopped his parole. They told him, like, no, you're not going home. Like, and which is crazy too. Like, this entire story is getting so out of order. So I apologize for my
No, go
lack
ahead.
of cohesion with any of this, but whatever. He just ended up finding out that his parole got flopped. Like, it got denied. They denied him parole. And they wrote on his paperwork that he is a menace to society and to public safety. That's literally crazy to me. Lying to the police is a menace to public safety or to society? You gotta fucking be kidding me. You know what's actually a menace to society and a threat to public safety? A murderer who is clearly still out here walking the fucking streets, and no one seems to care about that. I would take someone lying to the police over a murderer who's just walking around out here, just walking around, who actually got immunity to testify against Bolanos at trial. So this is just so many things. But on top of which, in this parole denial that they told him about, they gave him absolutely no reason to support his parole denial. There is a whole section there that says reasons supporting board's conclusion or whatever, something like that. And underneath it, it says no comment. That is such a play in all of our faces. Everybody's face. That is a play in everybody's face. For the government to be able to deny someone parole and give a conclusion, we're denying your parole because you're a threat. I would like to know what fucking basis did you use to come to that conclusion? I think every person incarcerated deserves that. Like, you deserve to know how they
Right.
reached this conclusion. They decided to say no comment. And that's supposed to just be acceptable? That's an acceptable thing? This man has had no citations while being locked up. He's completed all of his recommendations. He has paid off all his fines and costs. He has done absolutely nothing but be a shining fucking star while being an inmate in prison. And their reason for denying his parole was no comment. Aside from they think he's a threat, which I, again, can't understand how lying to the police is a threat to public safety. Is it immoral? Maybe. Like, that might be an immoral thing to do, to tell a lie, but it's damn sure not a threat to public safety. That causes no physical threat whatsoever to anyone. So that's crazy work. But this is the type of playing in our faces that everybody does all the time. And this is the reason that I'm so angry all the time. Because how much of this am I seeing on a daily basis? Like, you can only shovel so much shit in my mouth before soon I'm just going to get full of it, right? Like, okay, I'm full. I'm tired. Like, this is annoying. It's annoying to see these type of injustices happen all the time, and they just go unchecked. Because, again, the government, like, and when I say the government, I'm talking about, like, you know, the system, really, right? They expect such perfection from us. But where is it from y'all? Where is the accountability? Like, y'all can't just take people's lives and lock them up and throw away the key and not expect to be held accountable for the actions that you're taking. Give a reason why you're doing what you do. Give a legal reason. Give a logical shit. Give any reason at this point, because y'all not even giving any reasons, and that's crazy work. I find that to be highly, highly scary. Like, that is illogical. It's immoral. It's unjust. It's just downright fucking scary. Because today is Bolanos. Tomorrow it could be you, whoever, right? And this is how they're doing it. And they expect us to just be okay with those type of answers. I'm not ever going to be okay with those answers. Those answers do not appease me at all. I'm not satisfied with that. If you're going to do something, give a reason why. Because guess what? When clients are out here doing stuff, doesn't the court expect they want to know all about it, right? They do a full-blown investigation into everybody's life to figure out what happened here. And they put it on show at trial and all of these things. Because that's their reasoning, right? They want to know, why did this happen? How did this happen? Blah, 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 blah. Well, how come when the shoe is on the other foot and you already have someone's life incarcerated, We can't ask the same questions and be like, well, how did you come to that conclusion? Why did you come to that conclusion? What source of logic did you use? What source of actual material did you use to come to this conclusion? I think that we as people need to start like actually banding together and start caring about these things and start actually paying attention to them and vocalizing it together, because otherwise we are just laying down and allowing them to do this. And again, I see that the majority of people that this is affecting is a black and brown community issue. But I don't see people in our community. There are people, right? But I would like to see more of us, is what I'm saying. I would like to see more awareness about this and more people banding together, because we all see that as a public what we can do. Like putting public pressure on things is a thing that we can do, right? Like the more people talk about things, the more people become aware about things, the more ideas start spreading and the more networking happens. And that's how change is effectuated, right? But if we don't care about it, and if we're just like, you know, free Bolanos online, like, yeah, that's cool too, right? But like, that's really not doing shit. Like these motherfuckers who have the power don't care about a free Bolanos post at the end of the day. That's not hitting anyone, because they're like, yo, we're the people with the key. You could get on social media and hashtag free Bolanos all day. We ain't freeing nobody. And we're not going to give you a reason why, because we don't have to. That carte blanche kind of power is not something that I am ever going to be okay with. That's crazy. But sorry, yeah, I went on an entire rant, and I got all off course. I didn't even stay on any sort of course with telling you anything about this trial or what happened. So my apologies.
No, you good. You good.
Yeah. So, okay, backtracking to the trial. Sorry, and what occurred. Such a rant I went on. I'm known for those apparently, right? But okay, so basically. So he ends up getting charged with this, and we go to trial, and there were just so many issues. Issue number one, obviously, is the fact that Jeffrey Herbsman admitted to this and was not investigated, right? Which I've already touched on with you. But it was so much more than just him not being investigated. It's also that, like, he was given that immunity to testify against Bolanos at trial, which is crazy. So you gave a person that admitted to murdering someone immunity to testify against a guy who actually has nothing to fucking do with this murder? That's how much in their face playing they were doing during this trial. Like, there is only so much a person can sit and watch before you're like, yo, this kind of kangaroo court shit is crazy. And this is a man's whole life on the line. Oh, his whole life is on the line. And this is the kind of game they're trying to play? Like, that is sick to me. That is literally like a sick game that they're playing. And they play it so carelessly. Like, nobody thought that was weird that we're giving the guy that admitted to the murder immunity? Like, that's crazy, yo.
That is crazy.
That's crazy. Because at what point in time you think Bolanos could have admitted to the murder? You think the roles could have been reversed there? And they would have been like, yeah, we'll get, you know what? We're going to give you immunity to cut. That would have never in a million years happened.
Not at all.
A black man is not going to get immunity for mistakenly admitting to a murder. Like, that's crazy. That is.
If anything.
Dog, what? We would have never, if a black man admitted to a murder, we would have never got here where a white man would have been on trial for it. And again, like, people, during the course of this trial, people were very upset with me, like, calling a spade. And, like, they were saying I was making this, like, a race thing. First of all, I never made this a race thing. The media and its propaganda did that, okay? They made it a race thing first. But secondly, so I'm not allowed to call a spade, but everyone else is. Like, I'm not going to not call it out. Like, I'm just saying what y'all are all sitting here thinking. I'm just saying it. Like, stop playing. We're not going to act like racism is not alive and well and thriving in our society. So when I see it, I'm going to call it out. Everything is not a race thing, but there are certain things that are. And this entire trial most certainly was. Most certainly was in every way, shape, and form. So that was one thing about it. The other thing, the prosecution's whole theory of time, okay? Undoubtedly, Bolanos never stepped foot inside of Samantha Wall's home, okay? There was not a scintilla iota of evidence about that, and on top of which, I know that he did not. Like, I believe everything. I've seen all the evidence. You cannot convince me that ever happened, because it didn't happen, right? Which is also why you can't convince me that he killed her, because he didn't. Someone else for sure killed her. But there is a timeline of events that the prosecution crafted their whole theory about about him entering into this home. And the fucking timeline of events literally doesn't even make sense. Where I'm like, are we just playing with time now? Is time not a real concept anymore? Like, does the prosecution understand how time works? Like, do you understand what makes a minute and like how many seconds there are in that and like what makes 2 minutes? Like, I was so confused with their entire timeline of events. So essentially, what happened under their theory, they're saying that at 4:20, Bolanos goes into her. There's one motion in her house that happens at 4:20 a.m., right? They're saying that was Bolanos going into her house, tussling with her, stabbing her 8 times, and getting out of her house and making it to Greektown Casino at 4:20, 4:22 and 23 seconds. Or was it 4:23 and 23 seconds? 4:23. 4:23 and 23 seconds. That's not possible. Like, this man would literally have, and then there's only one motion, right? So there's so many, like, let me just break this down to you. Tell me if you're understanding me or if you're not, or
No,
like, whatever.
I'm listening. I'm following.
Okay. So according to this ADT system that Samantha Wall had in her house, right? That motion means that there was actually, like, it detected motion in her house, right? According to their ADT expert, the way that this system works is that it detects motion, and then if there's no more motion, it goes into sleep mode. And it goes into sleep mode for 2 to 3 minutes after that motion is detected. And then immediately, if in sleep mode means it's like looking for more motion, right? So if it doesn't see any more motion between 2 and 3 minutes, then it goes into idle mode. So at 4:20, there's one motion. At 4:23, her system goes into idle mode, which means at 4:21 and at 4:22, there's no more motion in her house because it's already in sleep mode, which means it's looking for motion, but there isn't any. So that means, based on this math, that he would have had to come in her house, tussle with her, stab her 8 times, and he got out of the house, and she got out of the house in 1 minute between 4:20 and 4:21. That's not possible because there was so much blood everywhere in that house. There was blood all over the living room. There was blood all over the hallway, and there was pools of blood in the hallway. For there to be pools of blood means that it has time to accumulate, right? You can't get a pool of blood unless someone's laying there bleeding out for a period of time.
Right.
That can't happen in under a minute. And so what is the prosecution's theory too? That he stabbed her up and then what, like helped her out the crib? How does that work with one motion? That one motion at 4:20 is Samantha Wall having already been stabbed, having like she like revived herself somehow and was like, oh shit, I need to get myself help. And that's her trying to get out of her own house. That's the only thing that makes sense. For one motion at 4:20, one time, for the system to then go into idle mode at 4:23. Because that accounts, according to the ADT guy, for it going into sleep mode and then going into idle mode with one motion. What makes less fucking sense to anyone with half a brain would be that between 4:20 and 4:20 and 59 seconds, that Bolanos is like fucking Superman on speed and comes in there and tussles with her to mess up her kitchen and then stabs her 8 times on her couch, and then she bleeds all over the couch, and then she bleeds in pools of blood on the hallway, and he gets out in 59 seconds and she gets out in 59 seconds with all of that commotion having happened. You see how that seems like that would take way more than 59 seconds? Especially because you're stabbing someone 8 times in their head and in the back of their neck. To stab someone in your skull, it's going to take some time to do that. You ain't just, this isn't a little like,
shank.
Come on. That takes effort. A skull is hard. She had 8 stabs and they were here, like on her skull. That's not happening in 59 seconds. Like, why does no one understand that? And then at 4:23 and 23 seconds, when he makes it to the camera at Greektown, he would have been covered in blood. Why is he not covered in any blood? And then the prosecution was like, well, he was wearing black. I don't care what color he was wearing.
Right.
Okay, because on top of which, if you just committed a heinous murder, why are you walking towards a casino where there are protesters outside? And he walks directly by them, just casually walking on by. One of two things. He would have been covered in blood, which means all those protesters would have been like, what in the fuck just happened to this dude? Like that, why does he look so crazy? Not one person's head turned. Or he would have never chose a route to walk in front of people, because then from walking in front of Greektown Casino, he then decides to walk in front of 36th District Court. You gonna walk in front of a court after you just committed a murder? I think not.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It doesn't make sense. The timeline of event doesn't make sense, and all of his behavior afterwards makes no sense. It clearly shows that he did not do this. And he's still walking past people this entire route home. Not one single person gave him a second glance. He would have been all out of his sorts. Like, I don't think someone murders someone and then is just like, doo-doo-doo.
Right.
Just like walking around like
Go to the casino.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what, and that's just another reason how we know this did not happen. But at 1:30 a.m., Samantha Wall had a neighbor, this guy by the name of James Griffune. James Griffune, the day after the murder, he claims that he was outside letting his dog had diarrhea, so his dog was like outside taking a shit, and he heard screaming at 1:30 in the morning. At 1:30 in the morning, there are video cameras of Bolanos being all the way down the street, like near Harbor Town on Jefferson, nowhere near Samantha Wall's area. And so, wouldn't it be more plausible that James Griffune heard the murder? Because then when James Griffune got to trial, all of a sudden he wanted to change his mind and be like, oh no, I heard protesters outside. I didn't hear murder screams. Bro, stop playing with me. You heard, you changing that? But the reason he was changing his mind is because he ended up telling the police the same day that he told them that he heard the screams. He was like, I've been feeling bad all night long. Like, I didn't do anything. I didn't call anyone. I didn't call for any help. So by the time all these months passed, you really just felt bad. Like, you've been sitting here in this guilt that you heard a woman getting murdered and that you didn't pick up the phone and call the police, or you didn't like do anything about it. So you were feeling guilty about it, right? Which I want to kind of tie that into another thing about Bolanos and how this all came back to Bolanos or whatever. So James Griffune gets to claim that he didn't hear the murder screams after he went and told the police didn't just come and ask him questions. He, like, when they were out there doing their investigation that day, he went and sought them out and told them this information. So you went and sought out the police, just like Jeffrey Herbsman did, because the police weren't asking Jeffrey Herbsman these questions. He called them. He called them up and was like, yo, y'all, I did it. Like, that's crazy work, right? So James Griffune goes up to the police and is like, yo, last night at 1:30 in the morning, my dog had diarrhea. My dog was out shitting, and I heard these screams and blah, blah, blah. Like, okay. And then he's allowed to come to trial and be like, no, those weren't screams that I heard. Like, those weren't screams. That was protesters. And like, Brian Brown was asking him, like, well, weren't you feeling guilty? Like, didn't you say that you felt callous? And he's like, no, I never said that. And he's on body camera video saying it. Well, he lied to the police then. He sought out the police and lied to them. But what I find weird about that is, first of all, you lied to the police. I find that weird, but okay. He claims he heard these screams and didn't do anything about it. So, okay, I guess you could have, like, possibly saved her too. Like, I'm not trying to put that guilt on that man or anything. I'm just talking about the facts of what happened here, right? But with Bolanos, the story was that he was in the parking lot. He was going through the parking lots. He was going through a lot of parking lots at night. Like, he was in a lot of places, right? And he was basically just trying to see if there was things that he could snatch in cars. Like, petty shit. You know what I mean? Like, still not right to do, but petty as fuck in comparison to everything else that's happening here. And so he ends up hiding in Samantha Wall's, like, parking lot because he sees the security coming. So he ducks down, hides behind a car. And then when the security person, like, leaves the parking lot, he's on his way out of the parking lot. And the path that he just so happens to take, he sees Samantha Wall. He doesn't know it's Samantha Wall, obviously, because he doesn't know her, but he sees something that he doesn't even realize is a person at first, like, on the ground. And it kind of, like, catches his attention, right? And he's like, oh shit, what the fuck is that? And so he's kind of, like, looking at it. And then in his mind, he's like, shit, is this person okay? Like, do they need help? Like, what the fuck is going on? And the prosecution was like, yeah, this guy was just being a fucking good Samaritan all of a sudden this day. Yo, that's crazy for them to even say that. Like, just because someone does, like, petty crime, that doesn't mean that they can't be, like, a human being.
Or let somebody die. Like,
hello, right? Like, the fuck are we talking about? Like, these two things are not even comparable. How did we get there? They're like, oh yeah, this guy, he's out here like, he took a bag of Halloween candy from a car. There's no
Do,
way he'd help a dying person on the side of the street.
because the way that the trial ended with the hung jury, do you feel like that is what played into the other side a lot? Like that idea of thinking, because he found her on the ground.
Sure. I absolutely do. I absolutely think that I would like to think that people are able to but okay, wait, but that's kind of the point I'm trying to tie it to. So Bolanos ends up basically seeing her. He touches her to see if she's okay. He realizes she's deceased, and then he's like, "Oh shit, I should call the oh no, I should not call anyone. I need to get the fuck out of here because I'm out here doing some shit I ain't got no business doing, and this ain't got nothing to do with me. I gotta go." To me, that makes perfect sense. That makes absolutely perfect sense. That had he been out there not doing what he was doing and just came across her, he would have called the police, right? But he knew that he was out there doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. And he's young, he's black, he was already a felon. None of these things play well. Like, if we are being absolutely realistic about the same thing that would go through the majority of people of like, honestly, even if he wasn't already a felon, even if he wasn't out there doing anything, I'm quite sure that there are, and I'm not trying to take away from people doing the right thing. Like, I get it. Like, there is a way to do things, but most young black men, I'm sure, are going to have that first thought of, oh shit,
this ain't got shit to do with me.
This ain't got shit to do with me. And this gonna look real fucking bad when the police get here. But this ain't got shit to do with me. America on its own has basically embedded this level of trauma into people of color, into black and brown communities, where that is going to be their first thought. And for anyone to suggest that that wouldn't cross someone's mind, especially a young black guy in the city, like this is not a guy from like North Dakota. This is not a black kid from North Dakota who's like this is a Detroiter. This is a young black man from the city. Of course, that's going to go through his. I would be hesitant if it didn't, right? I'd be like, sir, because I remember at one point Bolanos even asked me, when we were prepping, like for a trial, he was like, "Yo, P," he was like, "For real, like, do you think I fucked up by not calling that night? Like, you think I should have fucking called?" And I was like, bro, I'm gonna be honest with you. My personal belief is you would have been in the same position whether you called or didn't call. I'm sorry to tell you that. I was like, that is my personal, honest belief, bro. Like, I really feel like you would have been in the exact same place. If you would have called that night, they still would have charged you with this. They want someone to pin it on. And the easiest thing for them to do is find what they think is the easiest prey. And that's what they found with you. That's what they thought they found with you. I'm sorry, that's what they thought they found with you. Let me make that very clear, because that was some absolute railroading bullshit if I've ever seen it before in my life. That was crazy. But that's truly what I believe. And I felt bad even when he asked me that question, because that in and of itself, like, I'm sure there's not a day in his life that he doesn't replay that. But the reality of it is, or the reality of my opinion, I should say, because I don't think there's a way for anyone to prove me right or wrong about this, I don't think it would have changed anything. I truly don't. Like, talk about being at the wrong place at the wrong time. God damn. Like, that is the perfect example of that if I've ever seen it before. Or the most unfortunate perfect example of that, I should say. But my point was, so Bolanos ends up taking off, right? And he doesn't call the police. But she was already deceased at that time, right? At the time that he came across her, she was already deceased. And he just didn't call the police. But according to James Griffune, the day after the murder, he actually heard the murder and didn't call the police. Well, so you could have actually prevented something, maybe, right? You could have maybe prevented or like caught it before she actually deceased or whatever.
Right.
But you didn't call the police. But this dude over here who comes across a body after she's for sure gone and doesn't call the police, we just gonna pin everything on him?
That is crazy.
That's crazy.
That is fucking crazy.
I mean, and just imagine the level of trauma that I'm sure has to have had on him. Like that level of trauma to just be like sitting there and being like, fuck. Like, I was damned if I did and damned if I didn't. Like, talk about being in the wrong fucking, like, I can't imagine the level of like internal turmoil and trauma that he is faced with just replaying that entire situation in his head and just being like, why me? Like, why did that happen to me? Why did I have to be in that? And, you know, the obvious, like, people are going to be like, well, the obvious answer was that he was out there, like, messing with cars. He shouldn't have been messing with cars. Yeah, sure. But that's such a low level thing in the grand scheme of how this played out. It's the most unfortunate thing I could possibly think of in my life. Like, it's so sad to me. And it's so sad that, you know, all this propaganda and media and like all this hoopla was going on for it during the trial. But now it's like, has everyone forgotten about what's happened? Like, this man is still incarcerated right now and wrongfully incarcerated right now and just sitting there like with nothing that can be done. Like, that's why I really think it's important. Like, there are so many Bolanoses, but, you know, for me, I know this one. I know this Bolanos. This is the trial that I worked on. This is the client that I came to know. Like, this is the person that I, you know, have this like belief in. Like, I believe in this. And like, no one is ever going to try to think that it's okay to just like let this go. Like, I'm not going to let this go. I'm not going to let this go for any of my clients. Like, I'm just whatever. I'm just talking again, but
No, that's
whatever.
real though. That
Yeah.
is definitely real. Man, that was crazy. Hold on. Hold on.
Sorry, it's so much to it.
No, that is crazy.
It's so much to it.
I feel like this is an important time to say, like, just for everybody who's watching, like, especially for young black men, just the black and brown community in general, this is the time for one to start investing time into understanding how the law works, understanding your rights. I've seen the amount of stuff that I've learned in the past few years about the law and what's okay. Like, just knowing that when you get pulled over by the police, that you're already in court from that point. It's just little things like that that we don't know. Like, you should be having your lawyer speak for you when you in court. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and to just look out for each other, because we don't really have that bond that we should. And that is a big part of the reason why situations like this happen, because we're not invested into each other enough as we are invested into everything else. So it's like, y'all, we really got to spend more time we got to really spend more time investing into each other, looking out for each other, and just getting out of the typical day-to-day bullshit that we all invest our time and energy into, because most of the things that people are only worried about is the material stuff, what the next person is doing, their favorite celebrity, but we not focusing on our community. We're not focusing on the children that are coming up, because that's where all this shit begins at. So y'all just take the time out of y'all day to pay attention to the little things, or what they call the little things, because that shit matters the most. So
It really does.
yeah. But I feel like that was good.
Yeah, that was a
I
lot.
think that we
Sorry, I just like word vomited a lot of information out there,
No,
but
that's
like
good. That's
whatever.
good. What I was gonna say, if you could leave, I'm gonna leave you with two more questions. What advice would you give somebody who's looking to be a criminal defense attorney?
Um, I mean, I guess it's kind of standard advice is, well, you know what? No, I was gonna say like go to law school, but like that's so stupid. Yeah, for sure. Um, get active in trying to like shadow people in court so that you can really see the process, because like what you learn in school and the actual practice of it are completely different. So it's very important to at least have an understanding of the actual practice of criminal defense, which is not just reading from a textbook in school.
And if you could give like just the audience some like life advice, or some type of motivation or anything of that nature, what would you say?
You know, what I would okay, I would say perseverance is probably the most important thing that a person can have. Life can throw a lot of shit at you all the time. You can have the worst, most imperfect day or what you consider to be life, but as long as you persevere and stick on like make a goal, set a path for it, and as long as you stick to that future goal, your perseverance is going to be the thing that brings you through anything, literally whatever this world throws at you, because there's always gonna be some shit this world is gonna throw at you. That's for sure.
Facts.
Yeah.
That was good. That was deep. All right, y'all. This is the 13th episode of the God Pod. I appreciate y'all for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we're going to catch y'all later. Peace.
Bye.
Yeah, I really got this shit in the bag right now. Bad bitch in the front seat, car go fast right now. Smoke dope, but we low key though. Had to give him the okey doke. Like I'm so straight, I'ma just pass right now. Nigga need that bread like Peter. Everything I do for a reason. If you break that code, it's treason. Every one of my dogs, I'm bleeding. Every one of my dogs, I need them. Locked down, free that pen, I breathing. I do this shit for a reason. I don't do this shit for no reason. What you wanna know, I won't lie.